So here's one for you. What happens when you give one of rock's greatest frontmen ever a relationship ultimatum? As in, it's either me or your music. What's it going to be? Well, this actually happened with a girl that the singer was deeply in love with. Okay, to be fair, this happened before the singer joined rock's heaviest band. In fact, this singer was still scraping by, reaching for his big break, but he picked music. Still, it was a heartbreaking standoff that he would never forget. A decade later, with 5 legendary albums to his name, he wrote a song about this girl and what might have been. It became a classic, landing on one of the most triumphant double albums in rock history. The epic story is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know what? If you remember sticking your grubby little hands in cereal boxes back in the day to fish out the prize, back when they had prizes in cereal boxes, you're going to dig this channel of deep, deep nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the bell so you always know when our stuff's coming out. I know you'll find something you'll like on this channel. We also have a Patreon. Consider supporting us there to keep the music alive and the interviews and the history flowing. So what happens when you're deeply in love with a person and with a passion? Music. And then that person that you're in love with asks you to choose between your passion and your person. Well, Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin was given that ultimatum before he made it. So for a couple of years now, we've been working our way through Led Zeppelin's masterful catalog, telling the stories behind their biggest songs as well as some of their lesser known gems. Today, we're going to dip back into the band's landmark double album, Physical Graffiti. We're going to feature one of Robert Plant's most nostalgic and personal offerings, the phenomenal 10 Years Gone. So it goes without saying, but Physical Graffiti, it's a stone-cold Led Zeppelin classic, boasting 15 tracks, more than 80 minutes of runtime, 4-sided vinyl. It's an absolute monster. Now, gathering at Headley Grange in Hampshire in early 1974, the Zeppelin quartet of Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham were on fire. Yeah, while writing this one. The creative energy, it was just flowing. The guys were loose. They were working long hours each day to lay down 8 new tracks. They were Custard Pie, In My Time of Dying, Trampled Underfoot, Kashmir, In the Light, 10 Years Gone, The Wonton Song, and Sick Again. Said Robert Plant about it, some artists like to sit down and plan an album out. We just can't do that. Our music is more of an impromptu thing. Falls out of your head and onto the floor, and you pick it up and it bounces. That's how it works. Now, the only problem was that these 8 tracks were too long for a vinyl LP. I think together they had a runtime of about 53 minutes, and Jimmy Page, he wanted to keep them all. So an idea for a double album began to formulate. Zeppelin already had more than enough quality material lying around, tracks that had just been passed up on previous albums. We've talked about that before. Although there were some notable absences like the aforementioned Hey, What Can I Do, the 7 that were chosen, they were a strong showing. They were The Rover, Houses of the Holy, Bron-Yr Aur, Down by the Seaside, Night Flight, Boogie with Stu, and Black Country Woman.
Beer in my face, hey, hey, mama.
These older songs were intermixed with newer ones to create a seamless and sonically satisfying listening experience. Jimmy Page, who once again headed up production duties, he was really pleased with the final result. He said about it, "I look at Physical Graffiti as a document of the band in a working environment." Some critics have said that parts of it are sloppy, but I think this album is really honest. It's a more personal album, and I think it allowed the listener to enter our world. Here's the door, I'm in. End of quote. Listeners first started walking through that door on February 24th, 1975. Once they passed through it, nothing would ever be the same again. At the time, few fans even knew the true story behind the album. They just knew that the new Zeppelin album was the longest one yet, and that was a good thing. For once, even the critics were on Led Zeppelin's side. Imagine that. Most agreed that Zeppelin's sixth album was a rock masterpiece. The sound and the scope was enormous. It didn't fail to deliver. From the first notes of Custard Pie, you can sense that Physical Graffiti is completely different. It's a different feel from Zeppelin's previous album. While most of the numbers on Houses of the Holy, tended toward a more prog sound, Custard Pie, Zeppelin serves us some serious blues rock, just like in the early days. For In My Time of Dying, the boys produced an epic reworking of the gospel blues song Jesus Make Up My Dying Bed, of course performed by Blind Willie Johnson in the 1920s and later adapted by Bob Dylan. Well, in my time of dying. This one is the longest running track in Zeppelin's catalog, clocking in at just over 11 minutes, and it's a masterstroke. Physical Graffiti's solitary single is Trampled Underfoot, backed by Black Country Woman for the B-side. Of course, born out of a jam session and modeled on Robert Johnson's 1936 Terraplane Blues, Robert Plant drives home the way he feels about his girl with a series of automotive metaphors. The single went to number 38 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 28 on the Cashbox chart. And of course, when you're talking about Physical Graffiti, the conversation is always going to include Kashmir. This song is one of Zeppelin's indisputable crown jewels. It's a metaphysical masterpiece. It's powerful and awe-inspiring. Robert Plant even called it the definitive Led Zeppelin song. Now, if you want the story behind this one, you can check out our episode on Kashmir. I'll link to it below. So I'm just scratching the surface here. Let's face it, every track on Physical Graffiti deserves its own episode. But today we're going to focus on one. We're digging deeper into the exceptional, unmatched Robert Plant retrospective track, 10 Years Gone. Now, just like the Rain song, Jimmy Page originally envisioned 10 Years Gone as an instrumental. Page painstakingly worked up this iconic piece in the loft of his Plumpton Place residence. He said, "I had the whole of 10 Years Gone, all the guitar orchestration, it was prepared at the house. I demoed it at home, the guitars, everything." He also said, "I really was quite passionate about getting that one together." However, after Robert Plant started writing lyrics for it, the guitarist, he changed his mind about its instrumental status. Jimmy Page said that the song had a certain feeling to it, a melancholy feeling. And the theme of the lyrics that Robert Plant wrote, they exactly complemented what Jimmy wanted for the song. Said Page about it, "Robert is very much in sympathy with the vibe of my music." When it came to collaborating, Page and Plant, they just had this intuitive synchronicity. It's not something you can teach. It flows. Now, in February of '74, the band began recording the backing track for 10 Years Gone at Headley Grange, utilizing the Ronnie Lane Mobile Studio. Ambitious and intricate. piece is a tapestry of rich and diverse sonic textures.
As it was, then again it will be.
Some have claimed there were as many as 14 guitar overdub tracks. The soundscape for 10 Years Gone really centers around three primary themes. The first, played primarily on the Gibson Les Paul and bass, created an ethereal and really romantic atmosphere.
Rivers always reach the sea.
The second is more rock-oriented and supported by the rhythm section. And then the third serves as a bridge between the two. The piece also boasts two instrumental passages, the first of which showcases a breathtaking, absolutely moving solo. Now, as we continue to break down the meaning of this classic song, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. Your next pair of glasses, really. Seriously, Zenni is the best. If you or someone in your family wears glasses, it's the only way to go. Amazing, stylish, cost-effective eyewear that will be delivered right to your door. It's actually easy to shop, easy to put in your prescription. You just click on the info button up here and you'll get a special POR pricing. Now, lyrically, 10 Years Gone, it gives us some serious personal insight into Robert Plant's backstory. Now, while being interviewed with Jimmy Page by Rolling Stone's famed Cameron Crowe, Robert actually said about it, "Let me tell you a little story behind the song 10 Years Gone on our new album. I was working my ass off before joining Zeppelin. A lady I really dearly love said, 'Right, it's me or your fans.' Not that I have fans, but I said, I can't stop. I gotta keep going. She's quite content these days, I imagine. She's got a washing machine that works by itself and a little sports car. We wouldn't have anything to say anymore. I could probably relate to her, but she couldn't relate to me. I'd be smiling too much. 10 years gone, I'm afraid." End of quote.
Times, rivers always reach the sea.
10 years back from writing the song. That places Plant in 1964, when he was still playing in various pre-Zeppelin bands, which makes this anecdote something of a tragic preamble to the song, at least for this unnamed woman. She gave an ultimatum that ended her relationship with the rock's preeminent frontman a few years before he made it. But even worse, had Robert Plant succumbed to this ultimatum, we would have lost out on some of the greatest music ever put to record. Though Robert knew exactly who he was, so it didn't really matter. But for Robert's part, he definitely thought about what might have been in this song. If you take the lyrics at face value, for sure. Of course, he may be taking some poetic license here, but what he did write seems to imply that he hasn't gotten over this girl.
Just spill my time, baby, that's all right with me.
Plant sings, "Changes fill my time, baby, that's all right with me. In the midst, I think of you and how it used to be."
How it used to be.
Throughout the song, we're presented with a steady stream of nostalgia and regret. Looking back longingly, he asked, "Do you ever remember me, baby? Did it feel so good? Because it was just the first time and you knew you would." Now, throughout 10 Years Gone, there's this feeling, this sense of longing and sadness for what might have been. But it's at the conclusion of the song when it becomes clear that even after a decade, Robert is still deeply enamored with this girl. After calling her the vixen in his dream, he then proclaims, "Never gonna leave you. I'm never gonna leave you." Before fading out with "Holding On, 10 Years Gone." Tell you, pure jukebox poetry. All of this gives this song a compelling lyrical complexity that just makes me wonder. After all, Robert Plant was well into his marriage to Maureen Wilson by this time, and it was Maureen who faced, with the same decision of standing by a struggling musician, opted to stick it out. She even helped support him financially while he was still, band hopping, trying to find his way. So are the lyrics just artistic license? Or are they something more real? Either way, you got to hand it to Robert Plant. He weaves a convincing tale about yearning for lost love that still hurts us with every listen. So what happened to Robert Plant in those 10 years gone? How did his life change? Going back from the time the song was written, like I said, it places Plant in 1964. It was a time of humble beginnings for Robert Plant, when he was honing his musical chops on the edge of the English pop scene. Plant spent his entire early career in several Midlands-based R&B bands. There was the New Memphis Blues Breakers and Crawling King Snakes. 1965, he joined Listen, a Motown Records influenced act, and recorded a cover of You Better Run by the Young Rascals. In 1966, Robert met Maureen Wilson. The two got married in November 1968. Now, in the interim, Plant recorded 2 singles as a solo performer on the CBS label, Laughin', Cryin', Laughin', and Long Time Comin'. Laughing, crying, laughing, girls, finish my tears to happiness. Robert continued on with more groups, Band of Joy and Obs Tweedle, before finally landing with Jimmy Page and the New Yardbirds, aka Led Zeppelin. By the time Plant had written the lyrics to 10 Years Gone, Led Zeppelin, they'd released 5 historic albums, 4 of which became UK chart toppers. In the US, 3 would go to number 1 and another to number 2. He would contribute to a host of iconic tracks that would reshape rock and roll for the long haul.
Mama said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. From the land of the ice and snow, from the midnight sun where the hot spring flows, flying the stairway to heaven.
During that time, Robert would also see the world. He embarked on a seemingly endless stream of tours, Scandinavia, the UK, the United States, Canada, Japan. There was Australia, New Zealand, Iceland, France, Germany, Italy, Ireland, all over Europe. Robert and company, they planted the seeds of a global fan base that's never stopped growing, nor will it ever. You can add to that a lengthy list of accolades and achievements that Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin had already accomplished up to that point. But you get the idea. Robert Plant had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest imagination. So the man who wrote this iconic song in 1974, he was living light years away from where he started. 10 years gone indeed. He wrote this song, and you know what? From the research I've done, he never did see this girl again. He may have, he's just not sharing it. She had to know the song was about her, though. He talked about it. You have to wonder what she thought of the song. I always think about those things.
But as an eagle leaves the nest, got so far.
10 Years Gone was a part of Led Zeppelin's set list for their 1977 US tour. But the studio version of the song proved to be too difficult to recreate live. The band tried to get as close as they could, even providing John Paul Jones with a custom triple neck guitar made up of a 6-string, a 12-string, and a mandolin to help him out. But you know what, as you can imagine, the complexity of the instrument, even for John Paul Jones, was just too impractical. So, 10 Years Gone, it was removed from the set. Though Zeppelin did revisit it briefly in 1979 at the Nebworth Festival.
Sometimes, oh, we didn't have to go.
Then years later, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant resurrected the track for their concert in Japan that was on February 15, 1996. And at the turn of the millennium, Page also played the song with the Black Crowes on their American tour. Now for Jimmy Page, being on stage with 2 other guitarists, that was a rare thrill. He said, when we did 10 Years Gone with Led Zeppelin, there's all these guitars on the record, and I did my best to try to get through it with just one guitar. When we did 10 Years Gone with the Crowes, it was quite fantastic. They had obviously done their homework. Now, this was the closest that Page had ever come to recreating the studio version live. Besides the Black Crowes, 10 Years Gone has also been covered by Dave Matthews Band. Actually, Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds, to be exact. Randy Jackson, Stone Temple Pilots, Buckethead, and Jason Bonham. When Physical Graffiti finally hit the shelves in February 1975, fans wasted no time raiding the record stores. In the UK, the album shot straight to the #1 spot on the day of its release. Likewise, it also went to #1 in the US and Canada. And elsewhere, it went to #2 in France and Spain, Australia, and #3 in New Zealand. Went on to sell 16 million copies in the US alone, which by any measure makes it a commercial triumph. So here's an interesting question for you below. Where does Physical Graffiti rank all time among double albums? From the Beatles' White Album in the 60s to Pink Floyd's The Wall, to The Cure's Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. In the 90s, I'm going through all the different decades here.
You were only waiting for this moment to arise.
Teacher, leave them kids alone.
Show me how you do that trick.
Hold a candle in the cold November rain.
I mean, obviously, this list is woefully incomplete. But share with us below. What do you think? What's the greatest double album? Should Physical Graffiti be in the conversation for the best double LP of all time? Of course it should be. Should it be #1? Let me know in the comments below. What about 10 Years Gone? Where does this gem rank in the Led Zeppelin canon? I know Kashmir gets the most love on Physical Graffiti, rightly so. But man, 10 Years Gone, it's kind of an overshadowed track. It deserves more love, I think. It's an absolutely vital track from this record. One of the most personal songs that Robert Plant ever wrote. Deeply reflective. I mean, in the first verse, Plant says, "Flying skies of fortune, each a separate way on the wings of maybe."
On the wings of maybe.
Downing birds of prey kind of makes me feel sometimes. Didn't have to go, but as the eagle leaves the nest, got so far to go.
As an eagle leaves the nest, got so far to go.
I mean, here he's a young man looking back, knowing that he had to leave the nest to become his true self, to seek his fortune. Then when we get to the final verse, he says, "Through the eyes and I sparkle, senses growing keen."
Through the eyes and I sparkle, senses growing keen.
Taste your love along the way, see your feathers preen. Kind of makes me feel sometimes, didn't have to grow. We are eagles of one nest. The nest is in our soul.
Eagles all one nest, the nest is in our soul.
You can sense the pain, even the regret of what might have been, especially as the song ends with, "I'm never gonna leave you. Holding on, 10 years gone, 10 years gone, holding on, 10 years gone, I'm never." He knows he chose the right path, but the sadness, the regret, it'll never leave him. Record producer Rick Rubin summed it up perfectly when he said, "A deep, reflective piece with hypnotic, interweaving riffs, light and dark, shadow and glare. It sounds like nature coming through the speakers." Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti, and 10 Years Gone. What are your memories of this album and this song? What do you think? Is it one of Zeppelin's great deep tracks? I think it's such a phenomenal song. Is it the best double album out there? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our videos, we do invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you. And until next time, 3 chords and a true good friend.